Hey everyone, this is Mayan Gordon, owner of Mayan Gordon Media, co-founder of Champion Empire. We are back today live at 5 with an amazing guest. We got Leslie Ferris Yerger, who is going to be sharing not just her story, but I think some incredibly valuable information that pertains more to women. But if you're a man, you probably know some women who you care about. And I think this is important information for you to hear too. So Leslie, could you go ahead and just introduce yourself on a human level? Who are you as a person? How would you describe yourself?
Right. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. Really great opportunity. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. So I'm 58-year-old, woman, pretty much regular good life, can't say anything too wild and crazy about it, except for almost 3 years ago now, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And that's literally 2 months after an all clear mammogram and
Wow.
ultrasound. Shock of my life, as you can totally imagine. Uh,
Yeah.
and that one thing has totally just changed my life. It's a devastating diagnosis, absolutely true. But it's also given me purpose to share my story with other women and really, as you say, men too, because there are women in every man's life, no matter what, pretty much.
Yep.
That's just what I do now. I'm all about it. Pretty much single-minded on that.
Awesome. Well,
So,
I
yeah.
think we're definitely going to talk a lot about that. But I think to give some context around it, it always helps to know a little bit more about your background, because I think, a lot of people might imagine what that experience was like for you when you found out that you had stage 4 breast cancer.
Yeah.
But they're not going to understand maybe why you reacted the way you did or why you became this person that you are now, unless they have a little bit of context on who you were growing up. So if you could just kind of take us back to whichever part of your life where you felt like you could kind of describe what life was like for you. So you said you kind of have an average life. Like, what does that even mean to have an average life, or kind of a, life that you think is good, but
Right.
nothing too crazy? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, so I had kind of one of those idealistic or ideal childhoods. I grew up in a small town in southern Indiana called Worthington. No one's ever heard of it. And it was one of those many little towns in the Midwest. And so, easy, great. Went to Purdue University, got 2 degrees, and I started working in business. So I have some technical background. I have some marketing background, some manufacturing backgrounds, and project management and product management background. So I think, to your point, fast forward to where I am now, that really served me well because, I have to manage myself. I have to be a little
Right.
bit technical, all those things. So all those things have really fed in now to what I'm doing now. So did it all happen for a reason? Was this why I was put on this earth? Is this why I got cancer? I don't know. I can't answer all those questions. Like, nobody really can. But
Right.
I do feel like that everything that I've done up to now has just sort of got me ready for this.
No, I
Yeah.
totally relate to that. I haven't gone through anything so profound as cancer, but I've gone through some things that are, pretty not fun, I would describe them as, in my life.
Yes.
And it's easy to look back once you've gotten through it to start making connections to other parts of your life, and at least having a good perspective on it where you don't feel completely like, woe is me, why is this happening to me? Because I think that's honestly one of
Absolutely.
the worst questions we can ask ourselves, that there is no answer to. And so we tend to feel really bad when we ask ourselves, why is this happening to me? Either in
Right.
the context of, why is this happening to me, or why is this happening to me? And both of those intonations are not things that we have answers to, and therefore the answers we're going to come up with tend to not be very helpful towards us making progress in a positive direction. So I'd
Yeah.
love to ask you, what was it like emotionally when you found out? Like, take us a little bit through that day and some of just the emotions you experienced, and then how you managed and kind of dealt with those emotions.
Right. So my initial diagnosis really lasted about 5 weeks. So
What is
I
that?
got this little bit of information at a time. So um,
Hmm.
how it all happened was I got a bone density scan, which is not a scan to try to find cancer at all. So I was postmenopausal at 55. So my doctor said, let's find out the status of your bones now, because as we get older, we tend to lose bone mass. So if
Yep.
we don't take the scan now, we won't know if you've lost it or not, right? It's just a
Makes
basis
sense.
for comparison. Very innocent thing to do. And so I got a call back, and the radiologist said, see something weird in the bones. Will you get an x-ray? And then I went to get the x-ray. And the woman that was giving me the x-ray sort of touched me on the shoulder, and she said, does it hurt? And I was like, hmm, does what hurt? Like,
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know something I don't know? So just little things like that over a period of week till we finally got to the bone biopsy and got the results back in about a week. So that all takes a lot of time. So I had some time to kind of figure out, well, there must be something. There must be something wrong. And they seem pretty concerned about it, and they are acting like it's urgent. So didn't had no idea that it would be breast cancer, because clearly I just had the mammogram and the ultrasound. So you look in a different
Right.
direction, right? So we thought it was some sort of either benign or malignant bone disease until the biopsy came back. So I had a little time to get ready. So it wasn't like one day it was fine, the next day somebody said you got stage 4 breast cancer. So,
Right.
So for me, that's a little helpful. It was a little torturous,
Right.
because you go all this time saying, okay, what is it? I'm doing all this research. They tell you not to look up the statistics. Okay, well, then what do? You look up the statistics. I mean, after everybody goes to bed, you're like
Right.
opening your
Yeah.
computer, right? Everybody does that.
Yep.
Like the minute they tell you not to do something, you're going to do
Yep.
it.
Absolutely. I mean, most of us,
Yeah.
right? We're getting a little thing and we're going on WebMD and imagining it's the worst case scenario, anyways. So I'd love for you to maybe tell us,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
even
yeah.
within that context, what are some of the thoughts, if you can kind of recall, that you were thinking in your head that kept you from going to the hyper end of the place of like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like this is the worst case scenario. Were there specific thoughts that you were kind of intentionally thinking? What was that like?
Well, one thing that gave me a lot of comfort and also made it strange is that I felt fine. Like,
Right.
how this doesn't make sense, because I feel okay. Like, I don't have pain.
Right.
I'm short of
No
breath. I'm not
symptoms.
dizzy. I mean, there's nothing going on, right? So so I kind of told myself, so probably it's not that bad because I feel fine. So, right? So you justify all kinds of things, really, when you go through that.
Right.
And so I just kept thinking, let's just focus on today. Let's enjoy the day. I got the diagnosis, I think it was the third week in November, and the holidays were coming up. All my kids were coming home, and I was bound to determine we're going to have a good time.
Yep.
But one thing that I did do is I wanted us to get our family portrait done.
Yep.
Because,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
um,
So you kind of had something that you could focus on that anchored you to some degree
yeah,
for
exactly.
if whatever fill in the blank of if you were like,
Right.
I'm still going to get this family photo. And
I'm getting the photo.
did that
And I
help you
didn't
kind of
know if I
emotionally
was
deal
going
with
to
it?
be on chemo. I figured I probably would be on some sort of horrible, harsh chemo, right? Everybody
Mhm.
loses their hair. And I'm like, well, I'm getting my picture taken before my hair falls
Gotcha. Yep.
out. Right. And we
Absolutely.
hadn't got it taken for a while. So everybody indulged me on that, which was nice. Not everybody wants to get their picture taken. Go to the photographer. What do you think about the clothes? What are we wearing? All that kind of
Right.
stuff. But we got pictures and I love them.
Yeah.
So I was just, like feeling the joy of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just for everyone listening to this, I think, this is really applicable advice if you're going through something difficult, no matter what that is it sounds like Leslie has some really great advice around focusing on the now and one, what you can control now, but also
Right.
the positive things you can think now and not worrying too much about the what ifs that can tend to really take over our minds sometimes if we let them.
Yeah, that's right.
After you got your biopsy, what happened after that?
So after I got the biopsy, I thought, huh, this doesn't make sense to me that I have this mammogram and this ultrasound,
Right.
and now I have breast cancer. I couldn't feel it. I was so confused. So then my husband and I just decided, let's try to get into the Mayo Clinic for a second opinion. And that's about 5.5 hours from where I live in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So that's doable by a drive. So
Right.
we did that. We did that. So we went up there, and when they do a second opinion like this, you stay for days, and you stay and get one test after another until you're done, right? So
Gotcha.
first time in Tuesday morning, we met at the doctor, all the way till Friday night.
Wow.
So
Yep.
a lot of different things were done there than what were done at home, but in the end, exact same diagnosis.
So
Yeah.
how was going through that, 5-day process of getting all these tests done? Was that really nerve-wracking? Was it something that you had more hope in? Like, what was the emotional experience through that?
Having gone through the haphazard way that it happened at home, when I went to the Mayo Clinic, I felt more like they were leaving no stone unturned. They're confident. Everything happens fast, just like clockwork. They don't really know what they're doing. There's an air of confidence about it that I felt. And they also, it's really fascinating though. I mean, it's kind of like Disney. It's not Disney, but it's kind of like Disney in that, it's kind of like everywhere you turn, there's someone to help you. Oh, can I give you directions? Are you looking for a different building? Blah blah blah. I mean, it's crazy what so that's a good feeling. And so I felt confident that no matter what it was, whether I was going to get the same diagnosis or a different diagnosis, that I was being well taken care
You were
of.
in good hands.
I
Yeah.
was in good hands. I mean, you can't really get much better than the Mayo Clinic. And I just felt fortunate to be there.
So what
I
happened
feel that.
after you got the confirmed diagnosis? What were kind of the next steps that you went through? And then also looking back at that first phase of what we just talked through, do you have any advice for people who may have gone through the same thing, who are going through the same thing, or might in the future go through the same thing?
Right. So they started me on a regimen of really just two drugs, no chemotherapy, not yet anyway. So it's an estrogen blocker because my cancer is estrogen responsive. So that's basically like cutting off the cancer's food supply. It feeds off of estrogen, you cut the estrogen, right?
Yeah.
And then something else called Ibrance, which is advertised on TV. It's basically a cell growth inhibitor. It's a simple way to put it in. That is working great. It's working great. My suggestion going through a diagnosis like that, I guess the number one thing I would say is don't be afraid to get that second opinion. A lot of people are. They think that their doctor is going to be mad at them. Um, take the time to do that. You might find out something you didn't know,
Right.
or you'll feel more confident in what it is you're doing. And most
Right.
doctors worth their salt will say, especially in a situation like stage 4 cancer, yeah, I can see that. And one other thing that I learned too is if you are going to be on in a study like I am at the Mayo Clinic or in a clinical trial,
Mm-hmm.
you most of the time, I'm not a doctor or an expert, but I do know that most of the time you can't start one regimen of treatment and then go somewhere else and switch.
Okay.
So
Right.
if you're going to get that second opinion, then I think a lot of times they may not want you to start what the other one said you should do. Now, I'm not a doctor. Talk to everybody about that. Like I'm not telling you not to do something,
Right.
but that does happen. So, and
Gotcha.
usually it's not that long. Like it was, I think 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks between
Of
here and there of going
the
of the
first treatment
diagnosis
and
here
the kind of the
and then
second
going to there.
treatment.
Yeah. And,
Gotcha.
in the grand scheme of things, that's not long enough to matter.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what happened after you kind of, were on these two pills? What was the next stage? And also, what did they tell you going through all of this in terms of what to expect or not to
hmm
expect?
So what they told me to expect, they don't always tell you exactly what to expect because they don't know themselves because everybody's different.
That makes sense.
So yeah. So this course of treatment that I'm on average, lasts 2 years.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I've been on it almost 3 years now.
Right.
So, there's the average, but then there's the people that doesn't work for it all. And
Right.
so that really brings down the average. So after you take those out, then it lasts, it can last longer for the people that are left on it, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
counterbalance to create that.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yep. So, what we do is I go up there for a scan every 3 months to see if there's anything going on, um, they call it evidence of active disease. I just went last week, no evidence of active disease.
So glad to hear that.
Yeah. And so you just keep doing that until it doesn't work anymore. And then figure out what's next. And as things in cancer drugs are really changing fast. So really the longer I can hang on this one, then maybe there'll be something new or a clinical trial or something to go to next. But, it is unsettling because I don't know what that is.
Right.
Is it a chemo? Is it another pill? What are the side effects? Is it going to make me sick? Is it going to be okay? Like, I don't know. I don't know any of that.
Is this something that you have to kind of deal with now the rest of your life? Or is it something where they can see it's gone and it's not coming back? Or how does that work?
No, stage 4 breast cancer is not curable. So once you have it, you've got it, and you just keep treating it until you can't.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah.
do you know a lot of other people who have gone through this, or like have you met other people who are kind of in the same treatment as you? Speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I do know some people. I tried a support group and I don't like them.
Yeah. No, hey, they're not for everyone.
Yeah, I just don't want to dwell on it.
What you like about it? Because I think, like if I think about my husband, just in general, he hates support groups, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what he's dealing with. They're not for him. So I think for some people, they're not for, that person. But if you have insight as to what you didn't like about it, I'd love for you to share.
And it's just personal, and there may come a time when I really want that and will need it, and it'll be great for me. But for now, I'm not sick. I have energy. I'm doing everything I want to do. So I don't want to really act like or think about all the time how soon it's not going to be that way. Because first of all, I don't know that.
Right.
So it's just not quite what is good for me right now.
That makes sense. It's not where you want to focus your energy or thoughts on.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it. But they are very good for some people, and there are a lot of them out there. So, if you need one, you can find one.
Absolutely. So out of this whole experience, like you said, it's kind of become your life mission at this point now to share information about breast cancer and about things people can do or things people should be aware of. So I think now's that perfect time for you to lay it on us. What should we know? And I think, I was really excited to have you on because, throughout, as a woman, if men are watching this, throughout your whole life, they talk to you about breast cancer from when you're very, very young. They let you know that it's like something you should be aware of, but they don't really give you any information that's useful or that makes you feel confident about like what to look for or what to be aware of. They're just like, when you're 40, you need to get mammograms. And you're like, okay. Or
Yeah.
sometimes like when you go to the doctor when you're my age, I'm 29, they'll be like, have you had a mammogram? Oh no, you're too young. And in my head, I'm like, I'm too young. I've heard of people my age getting breast cancer. Like,
Yep.
what is the system and why is it set up this way? I don't know what's going on. You're the doctor, but you tell me. So I'd love for you to share with us
Yeah.
just some info to educate us right now.
Okay. So the one thing that, if anybody, any woman can take away from this, that is this, that uh, we all have a certain level of what's called breast density. So your breasts are made of really of a couple things: fat, and then the other stuff, which is ducts and lobules and all that stuff that is there to produce milk. I mean, as sexualized as our breasts are, that's what they're really for.
Yep.
They're really to feed babies, right? So that takes, the ducts and all that stuff to do that. So the mix between of those things and fat make up your density. And some of us are not very dense at all. So our breasts are mainly fat. Some of us have a lot of that other stuff. And so we're really dense. Density looks white on a mammogram. And so does cancer.
So how do they tell the difference?
They can't on a mammogram. And that's the problem. Great question. Perfect question. So if you've got a lot of density, one radiologist put it to me like this: trying to find cancer in a really dense breast is like trying to find a white bunny in a snowstorm. Can't do it. All max. You can't tell the difference.
Do they have other tests or tools that people could ask for and get access to? Because mammogram is the only one I've ever heard of. So what are those?
It's the standard one. It's standard of care, through all the radiologist societies and all that kind of stuff. But radiologists in the medical community is known for a long time that there are a lot of women, about half of us, that have dense breasts that you really can't see in a mammogram very well. And that's one thing that I want people to know. So, and how do you find out if you're dense or not? Get a mammogram. It's the only way. But, if you don't have dense breasts, then that mammogram is really a good tool to find your breast cancer if it's there. But if you are dense, which half of us are, and 2/3 of premenopausal women, even more, it's not that great of a tool because of the white on white issue that we just discussed. So this is part of what my life and my world is. I want to see a time where women with dense breasts are given the screening that they really need, not just what's on offer.
Right.
And we start with every woman, once they get a mammogram, saying, okay, what's my density? And if I'm dense, what else do you have for me? And there are things. So
you just have to ask, it sounds like, is really the key to this.
Right now you do, unless you go to certain places like the Mayo Clinic, which always takes it the next step. Okay. But not everybody can go there. That's not standard. Right. That's not life. That's not the real world. Right. So yes, because this is not standard, it's up to us to advocate for ourselves and get what we need, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. This is my whole thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it, like I said, it's pretty single-minded. It's pretty simple, but it's really critical. Know your density and advocate for yourself to get the screening that you deserve to have. So you asked me before, what are those things? Right. So ultrasound is one, and it finds a few more. It finds a few more cancers per 1,000 women. There's a lot of false positives in there, but if you're one of the one or two more, boom, right? Yep. Then it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So then on the other end is, there are such things as breast MRIs. So the MRI is just a big, expensive machine that really only people who already have breast cancer or who are extremely, extremely at risk, like people with BRCA1 and BRCA2, all these genetic things. So that leaves a lot in the middle there. There's sort of us average risk people with dense breasts. So what is there? Well, when I went to the Mayo Clinic, I found out there was something called molecular breast imaging that finds 300 to 400% more than standard mammography.
Wow. Yeah.
So why don't we all know that? Why don't we all have access to it?
I was just going to ask and hypothesize, is it because most of the current doctor clinics or hospitals don't have that machine?
Yeah. Okay. It's pretty new. It hasn't made its way through.
Oh, you cut out for a second, sound-wise.
Yeah?
Now I can. Okay. Yep, you just came back. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's relatively new. It's FDA approved, though. I mean, Mayo Clinic's been using it for a while. Yes, Mayo Clinic's Mayo Clinic, but they aren't doing anything that nobody else can't do.
Right. Well, and I think there's something people don't think about, which is most smaller that aren't like the top level doctor's office or even hospitals. I think we think that hospitals are these magical places, but a lot of them don't have all of the existing equipment, and they're not going to recommend something that they don't have typically. One, because of the business of it, but two, because they're just not thinking about something that's not within their own space. But if you ask them to that point of advocating for yourself, if you say, are there other options that exist, and where, even in saying, I know you guys don't have everything. Could you tell me about some machines or some tests that you guys don't perform here? Because I know you don't do everything here.
Yes.
And put it in that way, and then they have to tell you.
Or if you go in and you say, I know they have this other thing across town. I want you to write me a script for it. Ooh. And they might argue with you, but in the end, they're probably going to do it because what if?
Yeah. What if
right?
And they said no. Yeah.
I don't. The patient should always win that argument.
Yes. Yeah.
They really should. And another bit of advice: if you're getting such pushback on this and you don't feel right about it, do not be afraid to change doctors.
Yep. Absolutely.
Women can be like, oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. And if you're not feeling good about things, you should.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
because
that's in any circumstance, whether breast cancer, you don't feel like your doctor has your best interests at heart, and you bring that up and you say, hey, I don't feel I'm being taken care of, or I want this thing to be available to me that I know exists, and they're not supportive of that. There are other people out there who will be supportive of you and help you get the things that you need and deserve. So don't take their no's or their pushback as a final answer. Like, you are the one in control of your own health. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And a lot of us, we should operate more on our gut, really, probably. But, we can, if we've got a hunch that we just want to do this, either because we suspect something or just because we want to know. I mean, we want peace of mind.
Yeah.
And we now know that just because your mammogram comes back negative, it doesn't mean you don't have breast cancer. It means that they don't see it in the mammogram. Right. Those are two different things.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and you unfortunately, you're not the first woman who I've met who had breast cancer after a mammogram said that she didn't have it. I think it's, unfortunately, I don't know what common would mean, but it's much more common, I think, than people think it would be.
It is much more common. In fact, the statistic is in women with dense breasts, mammography will find less than half of all cancers present.
Wow. Yeah.
So less than half is not stellar.
No.
And that's how this happens. Yeah. And here's the crazy kicker of it all, is that the more dense you are, the higher your risk of breast cancer.
Absolutely.
So it's like a double thing. My risk is higher, and mammography has a less chance of finding it. So, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Double. Bad.
So if people want to learn more about this, do you have resources for them? What kind of are you doing with your time and energy to, in the workspace around this?
Right. A bunch of things. So I would say, first of all, if you would like sort of a layperson's easy, simple way of understanding breast density, go to My Density Matters, mydensitymatters.org. It's a website that I've created with some friends and a few doctors. It is doctor approved, and I've got that actually in the notes there.
It's an
Easy, simple way to learn about breast density and what the screening options are. And there are some resources on there too, like a couple downloads of, conversation starters and fact sheets that you can take with you. And you can even upload that to your portal. If you upload that to your patient portal, then somebody's got to pay attention, because then it's basically documented that you answered the question.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And they have to respond to it and not ignore you. And give you not just a verbal response, but some type of written response, something that you can take back with you and feel confident that you're being taken care of.
Yeah. And again, I hope for the day that this doesn't have to be a thing. Like we don't have to do all this, that this is all happening automatically, but it's not now. And unfortunately, we're the ones that I think they're going to have to push this through. So I'm just trying to help people do that.
Absolutely. So the takeaway, you guys, is really take charge of your health, whether that's going to a doctor that you feel good about, whatever that means to you, or whether that's asking, hey, I would like this test. And that is something that is 100% okay for you to ask, or even just asking more questions and really needing to get those answers, not being okay with them saying, I don't really know, or if they do give you an answer and that's not the answer that makes you feel confident or helps you feel better, like keep asking questions or ask someone else those questions until you get that answer that you're looking for, that you need, and that makes you feel good about it. So thank you so much for coming on here. Are there any last things that you kind of want to share with people?
Well, yeah. So you asked about what am I doing? So that is one. I actually wrote a book about my walk on the Camino de Santiago, called Probably Benign. We didn't even get to all that, but I spent 40 days, about 2 years ago now, working out some of the things that we talked about earlier in the show. And so I wound up writing a book about that has a lot about breast cancer screening and density and all that in there too. And then I do speaking, I do Zoom presentations, I do, author guests for people's book clubs. So you can find out any of that. Any of that is all on leslieferrisyerger.com. So it's all there. So, and also I would just say, if you have a question and you want to talk to somebody, just email me. I converse with everybody all the time, and I'm more than happy to do that. Because this is a confusing topic, and especially if it's the first time you've ever heard of it, people have a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really generous of you to, I think, give your time and your energy that way to people. So if you want to get in touch with Leslie, it sounds like her website's an amazing way to do that. I also know here on LinkedIn is a really great way to do that. Reach out directly to Leslie, or if you can't find her for some reason, even though she's got a greatly unique name, it should be the only one that pops up. Feel free to reach out to me. I will absolutely get you in touch with her. And I would definitely recommend, if you're a business that has employees that are women, that Leslie's a great person to bring in and have a talk, because this is something really, really important. And I think it's brushed aside more than it should be, either because people are uncomfortable talking about breasts, or they're, don't want to think about what that could be and like really how common this is compared to some of the other cancers out there. But it's really important information. And even just this amount of education that I've gotten in this 30 minutes, I know is going to have a hugely profound and positive impact on me, and could prevent me from having stage 4 breast cancer. Now that I know what to ask for, now that I know what to look for, I think, prevention is the answer in these types of scenarios, especially when it is something that, when you catch, again, I'm not a doctor, I don't know that much, but from what I've heard and people I've talked to, when you catch it early, this is something much more easily treatable than when it gets to stage 4. And it's a different scenario, and it's much more scary and difficult to deal with. So again, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you, not just for coming on here, but for everything that you do for really the world as a whole.
Thank you so much.
Guys reach out to Leslie, and please feel free to share this link. You can grab it. Usually there's like a little 3 dots you can click on and then grab the link from, and please share it to whatever platform that you like to spend your time on. You can also just tag someone who's a woman in the comments. You could tag a husband, you could tag a father, tag anyone who you think that this information would bring value to, because the more we can share information that's completely free information that could help change someone's life. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.